What if one political move could shake the entire global economy overnight? The US-EU trade deal is now on the brink after new tariff threats from Donald Trump, and the consequences could hit everything from car prices to everyday consumer goods. Is this just negotiation strategy, or are we heading toward another full-scale trade war between the world's biggest economic powers? Stay with us, because what happens next could impact markets, businesses, and your wallet. You're watching USA News Update, where we bring you the facts, the documents, and the context behind today's biggest political stories. Tonight, newly released Justice Department files are reopening questions surrounding Jeffrey Epstein and a senior cabinet official's past statements. At the heart of the issue lies a familiar strategy: tariffs as leverage. Trump has long advocated for aggressive trade policies, arguing that imposing tariffs protects American industries and reduces trade deficits. However, European leaders see the move as a threat to economic stability and fair trade principles. With both sides holding firm, negotiations have slowed dramatically, and the possibility of a broader trade conflict is back on the table. The stakes are incredibly high. Trade between the United States and the European Union represents one of the largest economic relationships in the world, involving hundreds of billions of dollars in goods and services every year. Industries ranging from automobiles and agriculture to technology and pharmaceuticals could feel the impact if tensions continue to rise. European car manufacturers, in particular, are watching closely, as previous tariff disputes targeted auto imports and created significant uncertainty in global supply chains. Financial markets reacted cautiously to the news. Investors worry that escalating tariff pressure could lead to retaliatory measures from the European Union, potentially triggering a tit-for-tat trade battle. Such a scenario could increase production costs, slow economic growth, and place additional pressure on consumers already facing inflation concerns. The ripple effects would not be limited to the US and Europe. Global markets interconnected through trade networks could also experience volatility. European officials have emphasized the importance of dialogue and multilateral cooperation. The EU has historically supported rules-based trade systems and often works through international institutions to resolve disputes. But with new tariff threats resurfacing, Brussels appears unwilling to move forward on a deal without greater clarity and stability from Washington. This pause signals frustration and a strategic recalibration rather than a complete breakdown, yet it highlights how fragile major trade agreements can become in politically charged environments. Supporters of tougher trade policies argue that strategic tariffs can strengthen domestic industries and encourage fairer competition. Critics, however, warn that prolonged trade conflicts can disrupt businesses, reduce exports, and harm economic partnerships built over decades. For companies operating across both markets, uncertainty is often the biggest challenge. Investment decisions, hiring plans, and supply chain strategies depend heavily on predictable trade rules. When those rules appear unstable, businesses tend to delay expansion and reduce risk exposure. The political dimension cannot be ignored. Trade policy frequently becomes a powerful tool in election cycles and domestic debates about economic independence and job protection. Strong rhetoric around tariffs often resonates with certain voter bases, but it also introduces volatility into long-standing alliances. The relationship between the United States and the European Union extends far beyond economics, encompassing security cooperation, diplomatic partnerships, and shared democratic values. Strained trade ties can indirectly influence these broader areas of collaboration. Meanwhile, analysts are closely monitoring whether this standoff is temporary negotiation pressure or the beginning of a deeper shift in transatlantic trade relations. Historically, periods of tension have eventually led to compromise, but each episode leaves a mark on trust and predictability. Businesses, policymakers, and global observers are waiting to see if cooler heads will prevail or if additional tariff announcements will further widen the gap. consumers may ultimately feel the consequences if tariffs expand. Higher import taxes often translate into increased prices for goods, from cars and machinery to food products and consumer electronics. While policymakers debate strategy, everyday households could face subtle but real economic effects. Inflation, supply chain delays, and currency fluctuations are all possible side effects of sustained trade disputes. For now, the US-EU trade deal remains in limbo, caught between political strategy and economic reality. The coming weeks will be critical in determining whether negotiations resume with renewed compromise or whether tariff escalation becomes the dominant narrative. What is clear is that global trade remains deeply interconnected, and decisions made in Washington and Brussels have far-reaching implications. As tensions rise once again, the world watches closely, aware that even a single policy announcement can shift markets, redefine alliances, and reshape the future of international commerce. For continuing coverage on this and other major U.S. political developments, subscribe to USA News Update and stay informed with facts, not noise. Thanks for watching.